Hello, good afternoon. Another episode of Elephant in the Room. Guess what, Taranjeet? We got it wrong. Yesterday was 49, today is 50. 50th episode.
Yes,
We
you're right.
say it was 40.
You're right. You're right.
So, how are you
Absolutely right.
today, Taranjeet?
I'm well. I'm well. It's a good, nice, cool day. It's a little bit overcast, but at least it's not raining, which is great. But I'm looking at some of the comments that are being made. Gloomy and raining in Perth. It sounds like it. I'm not sure about anywhere else, but yeah, it's been good. It's a fantastic journey we are having right now, Muhan, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm glad that we've been getting some very good comments and feedback from our viewers as well. So, what's the deal for this week, or rather for today, Muhan?
So, as we announced yesterday, that this is our final week, so it's the finale week. So, we want to go out with a bang, and to ensure that it's a bang, so we are hosting another CEO today. But before that, let me just bring you back how we got here. So last week we looked at the impact of COVID-19 and MCO on a few sectors, primarily the shopping mall industry and the retail industry. And we hosted Kevin Tan, the Chief Operating Officer of Sunway Malls, and that was last Wednesday, to share with us how it impacting the industry and what they are doing at Sunway Malls. Then we followed that up, of course, by hosting Rohit Nambia, which is the Chief Executive Officer of AXA Affin Life. And we wanted to listen from him the innovation that AXA Affin actually undertake 2.5 years ago, and how it's playing out in today's COVID environment. And of course, last week we concluded it by hosting Professor Safta Bhavani, who is an expert in this area of disruptive or digital leadership. And we had a pleasure from hearing from him, a very noted commentator and writer in this field. And just to note, his new book will be out, The Leadership in the Age of Disruption, on Amazon later this month. So today we are focusing on the reality of COVID-19 on the higher education. Although we have hosted Dr. Vinita Guptan before to talk about this, but we wanted to focus today's show looking to the future or moving forward. And because it is not only done here, but now education is a global industry, especially for the players in Malaysia. Taranjeet?
Absolutely, absolutely. And when we did that with Dr. Vanita, we had just entered into the MCO, and the area now was what does that now mean for us as university students? But several weeks, several months later, we are now on the RMCO space. The discussion now revolves around what is the reality that we are now facing today as educational institutions, as an academic area as a whole, also the education sector, and more importantly, what does it mean to us as parents and the students that are currently going through this process. So, absolutely right. Education is also a zero-sum game. It has been impacted. There has been evolution. There has been a requirement to change or die. It's one or the other. We can't have both. Otherwise, we will see a demise of this space. And we will hear this a little bit more when we speak to our next guest. Couple of questions that I think we would like to start this off with. The first one is, how is education changing in today's environment? The second one is, will our students receive and get the same type of value, whatever value means to the individual, as how we got when we went to tertiary institutions a couple of years back, all those years ago? The other one would be, what is the future of higher education, given the challenges that higher education is currently facing, be it online, the immense competition that is currently playing out, not only in the country, but also globally in this regard. Now, to help us look at these points, we have great delight to host Puvan Balachandran this evening in Elephant in the Room. Now, Puvan currently serves as the CEO of UNITAR International University, known as UNITAR, and is a certified CPA, a certified practicing accountant, with 23 years worth of experience in various industries, ranging from financial services, the oil and gas, telecommunication, and education management as a whole. In his capacity as CEO, Puvan oversees the operations of UNITAR's main campus here in KL, PJ rather, and its 11 regional centers spread across the country with a total enrollment size of 6,000 students across 60 academic programs. Now, that's quite impactful. That UNITAR is recognized as the first virtual university in Southeast Asia, an amazing accolade. And it's a pioneering private institution of higher learning here in Malaysia. Under Puvan's stewardship and leadership, Unistar has achieved the milestone of becoming the first university in Asia to receive the 5-star QS rating award in the category of online learning. We'll understand a little bit more about what that means when we have Puvan on board. Prior to joining UNITAR, Puvan served as the CFO and the COO, Chief Operating Officer as well, at Asia Metropolitan University and played a direct role in the design and the successful implementation of the business turnaround strategies that had been crafted at the time. Puvan also had a stint in INTI Education Group, a member of the Laureate Education Inc. We are absolutely delighted and honored to have Puvan join us this evening on Elephant in the Room. Puvan, welcome to Elephant in the Room.
Hi, thank you, Taranjeet and Muihan.
Thank you, sir. It's our
introduction.
absolute delight. Absolute delight. Muihan, I think we need to crave the indulgence of the audience. This is going to be an insightful discussion, and it's going to be very interesting. I would like to see whether we could extend it a little bit, and if the audience will allow, let's extend it for another 5 or 10 minutes in this regard. Muihan, over to you, my friend.
Sure. Okay, so quick one. Thank you for those who have joined us. And today we're going to have another very interesting discussion. And with us is Puvan Balachandran from UNITAR International University. I wanted to maybe just to start off, Puvan, if you allow me, to talk about maybe can you share with us what is the state of higher education today and in this context, especially, I mean, all this while there was a big concern about employability of graduates, because we have a lot here in Malaysia unemployed. And at the same time, with the COVID hitting, and I think the last few weeks, there was this article or this interview on CNN, I think was on Anderson Cooper, where I think NYU Stern Professor Galloway was asked opinion that what does he thinks, and he feels that the second and third tier university, at least in the US or Northern America, will be dying. So would that happen to Malaysia as well, and or this region? Your thoughts, please.
Well, thanks, Muihan. It's a great question. You have many parts covered. So let me try to first summarize what Prof. Galloway had said. I think his concern was staged around two premises. One is fresh college seekers, and the second are high fee institutions. So the way he summarized his findings were tuition fees have gone up almost tenfold over the last 40 years. Household debts have increased tremendously, further compounded by the current pandemic. Little innovation is happening in the classrooms, and education as an industry has never succumbed to any cost pressures. So he basically brought up one simple question: is the return on education worth the investment? Especially, currently now, if you look during the pandemic season, where students are paying hefty tuition fee but learning over a Zoom session. So he concluded by saying that once people accept the trade-off of campus experience, the use of technology will fuel the disruption and eventually lower the cost of education. Like I said, I think his views are still very much centered around high fee institutions. Well, where I come from, I think the industry has already witnessed some disruption, even way before the pandemic, albeit at a smaller scale. If you remember, over the last decade or so, we have seen a lot of established institutions have already begun to offer online programs, whether it's academic, certification, or executive programs. You also have a huge availability of massive online and open courses, and you pay a fraction of the cost if you want the credits and qualification. And thirdly, there's also available content on the YouTube Khan Academy. So disruption has already happened. However, I think in this context of higher education, we should never forget the groups that we serve. We need to be mindful of not just the school leavers. In Malaysia, it makes up to about 85% of total new enrollments into higher education. They seem to be the larger community that we serve. But we also have a decent size of international students, working individuals, professional and certification seekers, vocational and technical skills as well. So
Good.
other considerations should also be not forgotten, like geographical limitations. Learners are at different competency levels, the
Yes.
availability of infrastructure, and also the socio-economic standing. So I think a point to note, technology alone is not going to disrupt, but it will cause a huge shift towards high adoption of technology in teaching and learning. At least that's
Good.
my view.
I love it. And I think Dr. Vanita sometime back also talked about the need for us to have a less of a technology divide, because right now there's a critical divide and marginalization even taking place in the country, whether it be in East Malaysia or in the peninsula. But allow me to take this one step further, Puvan, and let's go down a little bit. We have a large variety of higher education institutions around the country. You have some guys that are really pushing boundaries, and some guys that are, and like everywhere, some guys are straddling as they are moving along. Won't you see, and I'm thinking about this, won't you think that there will be a potential of slippage of these lower tier, whatever lower tier may be, into oblivion, or a consolidation of the industry as a whole? We've seen it in banks with the 97, 98 crisis, 53 financial institutions emerging into what we now see as 10 anchor banks in the country. What are your thoughts on this?
So I think that's a very fair question, given the landscape. Consolidation in Malaysia, at least the way I look at it, has to be driven by regulators. You need to have a decent amount of subsidies involved. I think let's not forget, majority of the players, even out of the 200,000 new enrollments that happen every year, 60% of them end up in the top 20 institutions, which means the remaining 400 odd players are still serving the remaining 40%.
Yes.
So having said that, they have evolved to a very optimal cost model that they still can ensure delivery that fulfills program standards and also MQA requirements. So consolidation to me will happen. Uh, I don't think it'll be culling of the herd like how the American universities are going through, but to a very large extent, those who really can't survive, there will be no value in consolidation because the numbers will be very small to begin with. So they'll either go off naturally. Consolidation at the midstream and players at the top, I don't see that happening.
Agreed. And my thinking, you're right. And my thinking is twofold here, Puvan. One is the fact that economies of scales are now coming into play. The whole margin related discussion is also coming into play. The profitability, and let's be very candid here. I mean, as much as we would like to say we are, we are providing these sort of services, but you know what? Somebody has to pay for the bills. Somebody has to pay for the fees that the professors are charging, or the wages that are being charged. Someone has to pay for that. And for us to now think, very magnanimously, don't worry about it, it will be funded by somebody else. Well, I think that's not a question moving forward. So the next thing that now let's move very quickly on into the area of UNITAR, and the zooming in into where UNITAR is playing in this space. From the introduction, it was amazing to hear you've secured this outstanding award as an online institution. So help us understand, what does that mean again for UNITAR and for the sector and for the students that are joining you guys?
So maybe I can start by giving a little background about UNITAR. Being the first virtual university in Southeast Asia, our DNA was always building on technology in every teaching and learning aspects of the university. So technology usage is our DNA. 2 years ago, we made a very conscious decision to position UNITAR as a university for all. This meant that all our programs had to be designed and delivered in three manners. One being face-to-face, which is for the conventional students, fully online, and a hybrid, which is a combination of face-to-face and online, which we call blended, for various group of learners, irrespective of geography as well as background. So when all our teaching was halted during MCO, it was an easy transition for us to deliver all our programs online. And we did a tremendous job, the faculty included. Within 2 weeks, we managed to convert all the existing face-to-face programs as well as those blended programs to be delivered fully online. And I'm happy to note, I think our last statistics, we have 98% of our students who are undergoing their lessons online. So the adoption and the acceptance for online learning was, it was a big surprise even for us coming from an institution where we already have these three modes available.
Amazing, amazing. That is, I think we agreed a lot in other industries as well, and in the current practice that one good thing COVID does for everybody is it helped to accelerate the rate of change that we've been planning. So if organizations have been planning to roll out something over the last 3 months, it's just been accelerated out and things. I think this very clear cut in your case. All right. So before I go to the next question, I'd like to do a quick shout out to some of our audience, or to all our audience, in fact. All right. First and foremost, thank you, Mr. Chong Sulim, for tuning in. My good brother Ted Moy, hi. Andrew Chin, which is my schoolmate. Sajid Bawan from Perth, thank you for tuning in every day. We also have Dr. Michael Heng from Singapore, KJ, my good friend, and also our return guest speaker, Zorab. All right, we also be seeing him this week. And as well as we have Indran Subramaniam, thank you for tuning in, and Alex Tan, my good friend. Ranjit, thank you from Leka. So with all that, I think we have one question from Dr. Mike from Singapore, and I will just want to quickly maybe read out to you. So Dr. Mike say that higher education is overrated. Wow, strong statement, Dr. Mike. Many university graduates are not prepared for the VUCA realities, the VUCA realities, to the real world. University pedagogy must change to deliver relevance. So what do you think?
Great. Thank you. Very good question. So, my point of view is slightly different from traditional educators. So to me, an institution, be it university or any higher education, they have to cater for varying needs of the customers. So if a learner wants professional certification, and if I can give you a classic example, if someone wants to be a Microsoft certified engineer, he can do the program in 2 years and graduate without a degree and earn 2 times more than a Bachelor of Computer Science graduate who needs to then come out after 4 years and undertake this professional qualification. So to say the university is not relevant is not true, but I think the role of education has to shift to incorporate some of the professional certification and the needs of the more mature economy.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have another comment here by Zorab. So Zorab say to stay relevant effectively to deliver, facilitate lecture and tutorial in reality, integrates both the users of virtual platform. So what is being done to equip or build the capability of lecturers of the tutors? So I'm thinking what Zorab is trying to push forward here is because Zorab is also teaching that facilitation and virtual facilitation. Maybe the idea here is now that we all know that going virtual and you have successfully done that. But what are some of the internal development for the capabilities of your tutors and teaching academics? Because it's not just equipping them with equipment and software and go do it. It's a very different delivery method, I suppose. So maybe you wanted to share with us what is UNITAR doing in this area?
Thank you, Mohan. But I think I'm a bit biased when I'm going to answer this question. we've been we've been doing this since 1997. Like I mentioned, we are virtual first. So maybe I can set the context of this question. I think what most institutions have done during this MCO period is digitize teaching. So basically what they have done is they have, in lack of a better term, pushed information to students. So they have, created PDF document, PowerPoint slides, and started kind of pushing data for students to basically absorb, learn. And one of the things that you don't get is the level of engagement, whether or not the particular student is actually achieving some of the learning outcomes, and how do we assess. Whereas at UNITAR, we've always had this learning management system platform, and the whole pedagogical approach is very different. So the way we plan our courses are very structured. It has got a week by week information provided to students. So it's more of students being informed, this is your learning objective for the week, this is what you are expected to do. It becomes more of them pulling information, and then they participate in discussions. So that's how we keep them engaged. And that's the real difference between digitizing teaching versus having a full e-learning experience.
Very nice. Very nice. I like it. I'm going to ask a very sensitive question, but this is elephant in the room after all, Puvan. Let's be honest and candid. How has this pandemic impacted UNITAR from a holistic angle in terms of enrollment? And I know you're not the only ones who have been impacted by this, but in terms of enrollment, in terms of interest, in terms of innate sense of concern by parents on their children coming to university. And now that we have got into this virtual learning, do you actually see students wanting to come back to the university campus when I'm sitting at home in this, right? So there are a couple of questions there for you, but let's break it down to the first one about the impact on enrollments and some of the implication this has meant for yourselves. Puvan?
Sure. I think maybe let me take the question on enrollment first.
Yes.
The way the new recruitment has played out for UNITAR is actually, we have seen two distinct outcomes. The traditional segment where we have the typical school leavers and international students, those numbers contracted by 30%. And MCO was announced right at the point where the major recruitment happens, which is April, right? So we came in below 30%, but there are some players in the industry who have recorded 40, 50% decline. But this is still behind the sector average. But I think one key takeaway from this traditional segment, which is the school leavers, their preference for face-to-face and in-campus learning is tremendous. And even from Professor Galloway's findings, in the US, the enrollment for the fall would also decline by 30% because of the preference for face-to-face classes. So this is nothing surprising. But on the flip side, when you talk about students who are already in the ecosystem, and for them to have a higher adoption of online learning, I think they are more receptive to it. And in fact, we do monitor and have analytics around the participation of students. It's surprisingly, it's much better than when we were doing it blended or even face-to-face.
Yes.
So decline in our traditional students, whereas our working adults and online segment grew by 600% versus a year ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Wow.
Right. So it's a great, testament of the features that we offer in our online programs. Let me just share with you our online MBA itself, less than a year, it has 500 new students.
Wow, good for you. Very well. Kudos to the faculty. Kudos to Professor Haliza. Very well done. Excellent. Very well done. Can I take this one step further, Puvan? And we are cognizant of time as well. Uh, the whole area around, and this is to zone in on Zorab's point. We currently are having this discussion. I can see your reactions and what have you. Traditionally, I'm in a one-to-many class where I'm in an auditorium of sorts. But right now, I am taking on a newscaster-like role. I don't see where the students are coming from because they, although I may have them there, but they may have off their video or whatever reason. And how do I now ensure that on two fronts? One, as a student, I keep you engaged in the discussion. And two, as a lecturer, I have the necessary capabilities to have that discussion and drive that level of engagement. And I'm not talking about technology, I'm talking about the skills that the lecturers bring to the table, because this is very different. And I think this is a nice one that Zorab has raised earlier. Your thoughts, Puvan?
Right. So I think it has got a few components that we need to address. I think first is the way the courses are designed and delivered. So for example, when you're going fully online, in that environment, your lectures will be a mass lecture. So you will have 100, 150 students in one session. Whereas when we start moving on to tutorials and work groups, we do not see a class size above 25. So facilitation then becomes key. And how do you then engage the students? So this is where I mentioned earlier, the way the courses are structured and designed, it has to achieve certain learning objectives. So to say that all students will participate, we hope so, but there is also certain participation assessment. So far we have not had any key challenges, but I think the answer goes back to the design of the program.
Okay, wonderful. So Puvan, we come to our normal hour, but since we are extended today, so I'm going to ask you another question before the closing question. So I think we wanted to also pick your brains on this idea of one of the key feedback the industry given and multiple studies have been done on graduate employability. And of course, besides language proficiency, especially I'm talking about Malaysian graduates here, language proficiency that comes out on top, there's also this whole focus that our graduates lack the possible social skills, presentation skills, human skills, and so on and so forth. So as a result of that, that is also one of the big factor that they are less employable in that sense. So with everything going digital in UNITAR's case, maybe I mean just thinking out loud, and maybe you can help to correct that perception or misconception if it is one. Wouldn't going digital further dampens their ability to have human to human interaction more effectively in preparing them for the corporate and working world? What is your thoughts on that?
So I think it all depends. It varies at different degrees, right? So we at UNITAR, we have got this graduate employability framework where we basically produce graduates that have four key attributes, which is collaborative, adaptive, reflective, and entrepreneurial. So communication is built into that framework where we have got programs to help accelerate their proficiency, especially soft skills, right from year one, year two, year three. So there is various levels of intervention as well as depth that is kind of a scaffolding that you move from one level to another. So the idea here is the point of graduation, the student is basically ready for lack of a better word, a plug and play model into the future employers. Now, coming back to the COVID-19 situation, yes, some of those initiatives have been digitalized. Maybe just to share with you, the interpersonal skills, to some extent, I think you will always have the challenge. You'll also have the challenge in terms of being able to feel the energy just having people around you. So I think that definitely has no substitute, but certain elements can still be digitalized. For example, we have managed to place out our students for virtual internships. So virtual internships are very interesting. And these are our Bachelor of Education students. Today they are in schools doing their internship. How? They are actually doing their internship delivering online classes for students. So there are elements that can be digitized, but at the end of the day, majority of them still, it all depends.
Okay, so thank you for that. One last words for our audience, maybe some practical advice, 2 or 3 practical advice that you want to leave our audience before we close the session today, Puvan?
Ken, I think, I think where I'm coming from, maybe for employers per se, use this opportunity to access your business operations, automate where possible, deliver value, and try to bring down your cost of doing business. I think price pressure is definitely out there. So automation is something that even the government is putting in a lot of tax rebates and subsidies. Please utilize that. And for the masses and employees specifically, use this opportunity to upskill, update, innovate the way that you do your work day to day. Learning is lifelong, so do the right thing, stay safe.
Very good.
Wonderful,
Very good.
wonderful.
Excellent. So we've come to the end of this segment, or rather this particular episode, Muyan. And,
Yep,
uh,
yep.
and and we have to say farewell to Puvan for the time being. So Puvan, thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
your
thank
time. Thank you for making the effort to join us on Elephant in the Room. We are no BBC, and we certainly are not any hard talk equivalent. But you know what? We are doing our little bit to push the difficult questions that are being asked. So thank you, Puvan. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mohan. Thank you, Taranjeet. All the
Yeah.
best.
See you soon. Okay. Right. All right.
Bye.
So Taranjeet, wow, what an insightful discussion on my
Absolutely.
favorite topic, higher education. So maybe 2, 3 key thoughts that you got during this last half an hour, then to close our
Sure,
session.
sure. So, and absolutely right. And a couple of things that came out is yes, as confirmed by Dr. Vanita a long time ago, the sector has been hit. But the great thing about it is, at least in the case of UNITAR, and we can say that with some level of specificity, there are interventions that have gone around, there are interventions that have been impacted right from the beginning, and you're now seeing the results. I mean, it's amazing to see the increase in online MBA programs. Amazing. Kudos to them, kudos to the team for pushing this through. But I think what is also intriguing is the fact that in order for you to get to this level, infrastructure costs has to be looked at. And that's not an easy feat, especially at the magnitude that they're playing in. More importantly is also the way in which people are now being geared up for this. I've had the absolute delight to know Puvan for some time and his leadership team, and just seeing how they've been progressing along. And it's in a very exponential perspective, and I can vouch for that because I've seen them work in that regard. Just how they've delivered in this regard, absolutely brilliant. Well, the thing that I like this is final words around learning. And to be fair, he comes from a learning institution anyway, so I would have expected that from him. But the fact that you need to constantly learn, we're hearing that from everyone, whether it be Professor Sattar or Michael, the likes of Damiri Petra and Andrew Lau. That whole constant relearning has to be there, simply because that's how we start to lift ourselves in this entire game. That's the first thing. The second thing that also came out is the fact that we need to be adaptable. And it is actually, in my mind, it is a zero-sum game. Either you adapt or you leave the playground. It's as easy as that, because other boys will come in and they'll start kicking sand into your face and you can't fight them. So you naturally will leave the playground. And that, I think, is symptomatic, and it's the reality that we are facing today. Mihan, back to you.
So one quick one before I close. I think one of the idea is very refreshing is because by going fully digital, I think as an institution, then the geographical can enlarge. And one key point I want to raise with the audience, which I had a private word with Puvan just before this, I was talking about actually inter relationship between students and being an international university. We have this state here in Malaysia, but I think it's in other countries as well, that somehow the mixture between our local student and the foreign students are not as what it desired. So rarely our local student get to learn from a different culture. So, but I think moving online, then it pushes the boundary now to really force the student to actually go beyond just what you can find within your campus. So I think that is another plus point. And in that sense, it can be truly an international, global, cosmopolitan environment for the learning, right? Which I thought was amazing. So that's it. We are done for today. Yes. Any last word?
Yeah, one last point, and I would like the viewers to go back and view Professor Galloway's write-up and his, and perhaps we can provide a bit of a reference in the comments below, Muyan, because that actually hits on some very salient points. I heard where Puvan is coming from, but in a way, I also feel that we are running the future of our own sectors in our own hands, especially the academic sector. Why is that so? Because in a way, it's all about pushing and driving standards of excellence. That's what's going to allow us to survive. That's what's going to allow us to sustain ourselves. And I feel very strongly about this. The whole thought process around this has to be driven by a collective thought around driving national agenda, linking this to what employers need and what employers want, the demand that is required, rather than, you know what, I'm just doing this for the sake of doing it and let me push students out. The more students I push out, I tick the box, and guess what? I've got graduates. Yeah, but hello, we have unemployment because of these reasons, whatever the reasons may be. That's my thought here, Muihan, and I would like to leave it with that, with a provocating thought process to say, is higher education truly dead in Malaysia, given all that we are now seeing? I'd like to leave you with that thought.
Great, great. So tomorrow is a gift back Wednesday, and we have brought back two of our guests, Kevin Yong and Renuka Singham, to go through with four individual CVs. We have four individual CVs who submitted for review, and at the same time, we will further tap Renuka on her tips, not only just to look good virtually or to have that virtual presence, but how to even prepare for a face-to-face interview, to have a personal brand and image that is very confident, that helps you get the job. So tune in, and as well as if you know anybody job seeking out there, ask them to tune in tomorrow
Good,
as well.
very good,
So
excellent.
thank you. Very good evening, and see you again tomorrow at 6 p.m. Bye-bye.
And stay safe, and stay safe. Bye bye.